We're all going to die. We're going to go up or down. So I truly believe that. And I want to have an impact, right? So if I can help people through their journey, whether that be real estate or beyond, that's what I want to do. And I feel like you need to dig deep to understand what is your calling, what is your passion, and then look at the next step to actually start living that why.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Freedom Blueprint. I'm Adrienne Green, and today I'm very excited to have with me George Mina. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. Happy to be here.
George and I have known each other for years, and I'm really excited for him to share his story with you. He brings a lot of wisdom to the table and a lot of experience. Now, George, let's start for our listeners. Can you kind of tell me, what does your investing portfolio look like?
Great question, and thanks again for having me on here. We've got a large portfolio range of single family to commercial and large multifamily. And we started with small multifamily and single family homes in Chattanooga, actually through you, Adrienne.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you on is we've known each other for years. I've seen you grow. And so, let's go back to that beginning. You're based in Atlanta. How did you get started in Chattanooga, and how did you, where did that launch you to?
Chattanooga was a logical path. As you mentioned, we lived in Atlanta, and it would be our halfway point. My in-laws live in Nashville, so we'd go halfway to Chattanooga to drop off our children so they could spend weekends with them. And as we got more into it, like, wow, this is a great city to invest. We had done a mastermind for physician investors. And at the time, my wife would listen to these podcasts end on end. And I was like, what are you listening to? I've got my 9-to-5 job. I'm happy here. But as I dug deeper and started realizing the significant benefits and significant freedoms associated with real estate and dug deeper into my personal why, it became very evident that that was a great path, and Chattanooga was an exceptional starting point for us.
What I love about that is that it was very personal. So often people are just on Bigger Pockets, whatever the forum is, and it's like, city XYZ is the best place to invest in real estate right now, and they all flock there. And you chose, hey, what's going to be a place that is a good market for investing and makes sense for us personally?
Absolutely. And the fact that it's 2 hours away, I'm not saying I go there that often anymore, but it's accessible. We love going for the weekends as well. So it made a lot of sense for us.
And I think that's something else people underutilized by real estate investors is if you choose a market, it's a place you enjoy going. Well, now you get to go there and write them off as business trips because you are going to check on your properties and do some work while you're there. So that's kind of a nice little bonus.
Absolutely. I can't count the number of times where we doubled down. We had to go visit the property. The kids would say, oh my gosh, we're going to look at one of your properties again. Oh, we're talking about real estate again. But we had fun throughout the process as well.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely an adventure, and it's great how much the kids learn when you do bring them along. Now, what I'd like to talk about is your background. We've hinted at a little bit coming into real estate. You don't have a background in real estate. It wasn't like you were raised by real estate agents or investors. Your background is very W-2, very IT leadership. So I'm curious, you spent over 2 decades in this IT leadership world before you pivoted into real estate. What was that transition that really motivated you to start focusing on something other than just the W-2?
Fantastic question. I reflect on that often, even up until today. So I have a fantastic job. I'm still currently a W-2 employed, 9-to-5. In my IT job, I've been in the same field for well over 2 decades now, actually going on 3 decades. I'm getting old. But what happened along the way about 5 years ago is I started hearing people's stories about their path to freedom and more importantly, their whys. And I started digging deeper into what is my personal why. And a lot of what I was looking for in my day-to-day job was really driven by extrinsic values of getting that next level up, getting that promotion. When I reflected on what mattered most, it became very evident. It was faith, family, and impact. And it remains the strongest path. And I do feel that real estate is one of the best paths to enable those freedoms around faith, family, and impact. And, to this day, that is my North Star. I have a vision board right behind me that I look at every day to just reiterate that, and that's where we continue to scale up our portfolio and support that construct around faith, family, and impact.
I love that. And I think that's what, again, this is what real estate investors need to hear because, again, so many are like, oh, well, I'm going to start with this kind of investing because it's what makes sense to the numbers or it's what on Bigger Pockets or anything like that. And again and again, I'm like, well, why are you investing? What are your core values? Because that needs to guide the kind of investing you do. Otherwise, you're going to get distracted by shiny object syndrome. So I love that you started with those core values. That led you into real estate investing, and that's your North Star for all the decisions. Or I hope that's kept you on the straight and narrow path for the most part.
There's always bumps on the road, but that's what makes it fun. And you grow through discomfort. So I certainly have grown through that. And I'm not the same person that I was a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I think one of the biggest things culturally, you go into your job. I'm an electrical engineer. My dad was an electrical engineer. My brother's an electrical engineer. We had these constructs around this fixed mindset. I would say, okay, you have your job for life in the same field and you go there. So I played it safe for years. And my wife, 5 years ago when we started, and actually we started with you, she's like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm working. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. She's like, are you really satisfied? Are you really happy? And I said, happiness is fleeting, but I realized at that point, I really wasn't living my why and what mattered most. And that shift in mindset was the most impactful enabler to pivot into real estate.
I love that. That was actually the next question I had about what beliefs you had to unlearn, but you hit that with talking about that fixed mindset. So then the next piece would be, I'm curious, how did you mentally prepare for the uncertainty that we have in the real estate investing world, which is very different from the 9 to 5 world, very different from the engineering world? How did you handle the chaos or uncertainty that can come into real estate investing?
I will affirm that I was terrified when we first started. I have no other words for it, just because I really didn't know what I was getting into. Some even the terminology that I don't even think about right now was new to me. But I surrounded myself with people who have done it before. And I think if I reflect on my fantastic career within my current IT job, it's the people and the processes in place. So if you count on a reliable team, you've got a great relationship, deep relationships, they will certainly help you scale up and also support you because they've been there and done that and can certainly help you in your real estate journey. So that was a big boost. My wife as well, when I talk to folks that I coach today, if you have a partner to help you, even if they're not into day-to-day, that support system as well lets you keep going. And I can tell you, if it wasn't for my wife, I probably would have been, okay, let's skip this deal. Let's pass on. It's easy. I'm going to play it safe in my swim lanes and what I know.
Love it. She helps, I guess, get you out of your comfort zone, huh?
She did early on. And now it's the opposite, where I go for it. As I mentioned, I am not the same person that I was 5 years ago, even a few years ago. And it was that mindset shift and the confidence with having the right team to actually execute on fantastic opportunities.
And I love how you talk about it's the people and the processes, because I feel like so often investors can lean heavy into one or the other. And you mentioned a lot on the people. What about the processes piece? What does that look like for you?
So on the operations side, we use Hemlane for our property management software. So I think that to have processes in place early, to have fixed templates for your leases, and if this happens, what do you do to train people who are, in the business as well in terms of how to do it? Because what I started early on is I want to work in the business first to truly understand it so that I can step back and work on the business and focus on the higher strategic value items. So having the right team in place in combination with the processes to know, okay, there's all these different levers as I take over a property. If we want to move the tenants out, there's something called cash for keys. What does that playbook look like? Who is the team that I'm going to have? What does it look like for tenant communications? Am I able to automate those systems, including rent collections through software, right? So you don't have to do it all alone. You can have that support. And what happens is, again, it goes back to your mindset. You're going to think you can only do this much. Your mind is going to immediately be like, this is too hard. I'm not going to do it. And you just give up. Once you insert yourself in there and start doing it, you end up raising your floor and you start realizing, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought. You reflect on a week, a month. From there, you're like, look at all the stuff that I've learned along the way. And you really start to become a real estate investor.
Very good points. Let's talk about that scaling. You've scaled, I believe it's to over 750 doors now. Is that accurate? Wow. From those first, single family, small multifamily, now you've got larger multifamily. I know you've done some pretty intense like rehab, BRRRR situations. So now with all of those deals under your belt, what is your personal filter when you're evaluating whether a project is worth your time?
As I mentioned, our first deal that we did in Chattanooga, I was terrified. It was a full BRRRR. We bought it for, I think, $70,000. We put another $60,000. It was a 3-year team who was fantastic at the time. And Mary Alice, my wife, at the time, she's like, just keep going. So I just kept going. So we ended up there and then started scaling up into the small multifamily and then started doing syndications. And this is where we're general partners, not limited partners, but general partners where we actually have operational roles. Like anything, you just get into it and you figure it out. But you don't figure out in a naive sort of way. You have the systems and the people around you, the processes to make informed decisions, the people who have syndicated deals before, the people who've been doing it for several years ahead of you. So that it gave me the confidence as we started to elevate up, and to the point that late last year alone, we had done 0 transactions until December. In December, we closed on 4 different properties. One was a 1031 exchange into a mixed-use commercial space for my wife. There was another one I can't remember. There was a large 86 unit that we did a tick on in St. Louis, another 242 unit that we syndicated. And then just a few months ago, I closed as one of the managing partners on a 72 unit just around the corner from my house. So it was just about getting into it, figuring it out, learning from people around you, and then really scaling up.
All right. So I love it. You're bringing this person who's been through it all and has really grown. I can imagine from let's say hiking the little mountains, like Stone Mountain or something around Atlanta to now you're kind of speaking as somebody who's gone up to Everest, right? So, and you've given a lot of big picture view. I'd love for you to keep in mind, if you had the investor who's stuck at 3 to 5 properties, they're overwhelmed. What would you say the thing is that they need to do, the system or the mindset shift? What do they need to do to start scaling up? So 10x up.
It's the people around you. So I think you can scale through partnerships. So if you think you're going to do it on your own and do better, it's going to be challenged. And I was naive early on. We can do this on our own. The reality is you're going to run out of funds at some point, regardless of how much leverage you have, how creative you get with different sources of funds, you will need to partner with folks. And I think part of it, when I reflect on my fantastic IT career, you're managing perception, but it's also reality. So when you're having a conversation with a potential agent, you're thinking about it, or anyone, not what's in it for you, but what's in it for them. How can I help them with their business? So there's something to be said about credibility and expertise there. And I can tell you, after closing on several large multifamily properties, of which I started as a general partner to managing partner, there's credibility there that I didn't have before. And I portray myself to just say, here's my track record. Here's what expertise I have. Sort of impression amplifier that you can share with agents as you go through. Perhaps joining a mastermind of like-minded folks who've been there and done that. That truly is how we scaled up. And this is coming again from someone who started with a fixer-upper.
Great point. And I'm curious, for listeners who are they're scared of partnerships, right? What wisdom would you give them to help identify great partners or great partnerships? What is that determining factor for you that's a yes versus a no on a potential partnership?
It's a fantastic question. So partnerships are not point in time. If you're doing point in time, you're doing transactions, it's going to fail. I do not do transactions. Every single person I talk to, whether it's in person or via these types of meetings, it's how can I help you? How can we build a deeper partnerships? And those take time. So planting the seed early and often to share with people, here is my track record, here's my credibility and expertise. Even if you have a few properties, well ahead of a majority of the folks who are still underwriting deals, looking at different markets and saying, I'm going to wait until the time is right. Look at the market right now. The sky is falling. I can tell you this is where real opportunities occur because everyone's moving one direction. You go in the opposite direction. So I think building those relationships over time, looking at every conversation is in terms of how can I help this person with their life. It could be personal. It could be on the real estate journey. It could be connecting them. I orchestrate connections with people really well. That is my one skill that I know how to do, and I know how to do it at the right time. So I think it's very important to build those relationships and recognize that this is the long game versus, hey, I'm going to just close on a 100-unit deal and I'll be done. You've got to have the credibility and expertise with these folks.
That's a great point, right? And that mindset of not just being transaction oriented, but rather how can we add value? Now, as you've scaled, I know your team has probably changed. So I'd love to hear, what does your team look like with, your operators that you're working with? And because it's my focus, how has using virtual assistants played a role in your growth?
Fantastic question. So within Chattanooga, I'll start there. I have a fantastic team of handyman, electricians, plumbers, and a big thanks to you, Adrienne, because those are the folks that I was referenced 5 years ago. This is where, again, relationships matter. I didn't do a single transaction. I said, I'm going to invest in you as a core part of my team. You are the face of my business, and I might pay you a little bit more, or I may not. It just depends on how much they ask for, but I know you're going to be responding very, very quickly there. So I think that was part of it on that front in terms of the small multifamily. And as we scale up, we do have VAs, and the VAs have been exceptional in terms of building out content for us. So as an example of when we put out the offering memorandum for limited partner investors, when we're doing a large syndication, we have VAs that build that for us because I can tell you, having done a bunch of OMs, it's very time consuming. It's very painful, but if I can give the right direction and guidance, extract myself out of that, because what's your time worth? and then focus on the strategy of building those relationships with other brokers to find other exceptional deals, underwrite those deals, make sure we're mitigating risk in our overall process. That certainly helps. One thing, I'll be very candid on it, even on this most recent deal, I got deep into the weeds, a lot deeper than I expected, and it just had to be done. But I think because of that, now I know exactly what to look for in the next deal. And we're actually forming our team like Voltron to say, okay, here's our investor relations person, here's our fractional CFO, here are the VAs that are going to support us on the content, here are folks that are going to help us with equity and capital raising so that you can really work on the business and have others work in the business, but be motivated in that aspect.
Hiring a virtual assistant shouldn't be a guessing game. If you're ready to offload time-consuming tasks and scale your real estate investing business, my Real Estate VA Launchpad course gives you the exact roadmap to find, train, and manage high-performing VAs. Learn how to delegate like a pro and take back your time. Enroll now at adriennegreen.com/courses, and you'll find that link in the show notes below.
Right. And I feel you because, George, I think we have similar personalities in wanting to be detail oriented and have every part of the system be like optimized and clean. And yet we know that like our most important role is those connections, is the face-to-face time with networking and everything like that. And it's tough to have that duality of realizing this is my top 10%, but I want everything else to be great too.
I don't know about you, Adrienne, but for me, that is the hardest part, letting go, because my take instinctually is it's not even from a place of arrogance or confidence, but it's just, I'm going to do this better than this other person. But then what happens is if you don't enable that person, they're going to expect that, okay, George has an ask. He's going to do the work for me anyway. Why should I be doing it, right? So you need to give them their room. And from one of my partners, he told me, look, even these property managers who are fantastic, you've got to let them do their job. Don't get into the weeds, the day-to-day. Let them handle it. Observe and then insert yourself when necessary. So it's a balancing act there, but certainly that will be a key part of scaling up the trust that you have in the partners and that you're working with.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, let's talk about that tech a little bit, because that's something that can help, with that aspect of handing things off if we know people have the right tech. You mentioned Hemlane before. Are there any other tools or platforms that have been valuable for you in streamlining or scaling your real estate business?
I will be the first to say, even though I'm deep in tech, and I truly am, that I haven't tapped into it as much as I should. I still self-manage through Hemlane, and people say, well, why do you do that? I was like, it's easy, and I have a great team. There are other tools that we use for the larger multifamily portfolio, but I lean on the team to do that and then give me the executive summary around that. So there's things like Real Pages, Buildium, and other software platforms for asset management and property management that we heavily leverage. But I don't need to go into the details and know all the nuances around that. The other platform that I do use and I'm very familiar with is when we're syndicating deals. There's something called Cash Flow Portal, which is how we raise deals and communicate opportunities to limited partners. And even with that, I still lean on the who. They have a fantastic support team. So when I've got a question that I don't know the answer to, sending them a message to say, can you help me with this? And they're super responsive. So it comes back to it's not one or the other. It has to be the tech with the people to really help you, in my opinion.
I love it. And I feel like I am not the only one who doesn't utilize the tech support at companies enough. My husband always has to remind me when I go to him to solve a problem with an app or website or whatever. He's like, well, have you reached out to tech support?
There you go. There's always a who, right? It's a who, not how. So I think in any problem you're trying to unstick, at least for what I've looked at, is it's not, if you go down the how hole, it's going to take you a lot of time. If someone's been there, done that, they do it at scale. What's your time worth? It's probably worth your time to at least evaluate that who and see if they're going to be a good fit for your business.
Right. I love that. Okay. So let's say you had to rebuild your portfolio again from square one let's give you $100,000 to start. With your current knowledge, what would you do differently?
I would have started earlier. I really think that this goes back to, and not to not answer your question directly, I will answer your question directly, but I think just starting earlier and up here, getting through the right mindset, getting in the right mindset to understand what your why what drives you on a daily basis, that is really the starting point. So if I had gotten out of my comfort zone earlier, that's what I would have been telling my younger self, to be like, get involved in real estate earlier. Now, that said, if I had $100,000, what would I do? Crazy, because they did it, and I won't go into the details other than they had $300,000. They put the $300,000 into, they're like, oh, I'm going to pay all cash for this property. It's like, why would you do that? That's leverage. Everyone talks about like leverage. It's like, oh, you want to pay cash, you'll be all set. Leverage is a good thing if done in the right way. So you got to buy it at the property at the right basis, in the right location, and have the right team and operations in place. So if I had $100,000, I probably would diversify, a few different small multifamilies or potentially one larger multifamily, larger than a quadruplex. So getting more into the commercial multifamily. So, I mean, if you've got $500,000 there, you could get a duplex or a quad maybe in Chattanooga for that price point, or you could partner with someone and do something larger and scale up your business there, because I think that's one thing worth noting. The reason I like multifamily or love multifamily is that you mitigate risk. You have multiple sources of income. You're not dependent on that single tenant. And there's economies of scale there, because it's not as if your expenses on a quadruplex is going to be 4x that of a single family home. Our most successful quad is in Highland Park in Chattanooga. It does great, and we have very low operating expenses there. So I would say small multifamily or partnership to go into a larger multifamily.
Awesome. I think that's a lot of wisdom. And if someone's listening and they're getting started, don't start at square one like George did. Learn and start at like square 3 or 4 with his wisdom there. Very nice. If someone listening today is burnt out in corporate, what's the one message that you would want them to hear from you and your story?
The most important thing is reflecting on what is important for you. What are your intrinsic values to go to your North Star and your why, because that will shape every other decision you make. So that's number one. 1B would be take action. Don't sit on the sidelines. You don't need to know it all. There are teams, there are programs that can help you along the way. Taking that first step will lead you to your next step. And I sincerely mean that. The reason people do not succeed is because they don't take action. And it goes back again to sitting on the sidelines, trying to get everything perfect, using any excuse possible. I know for a fact I did that early on in real estate. My wife having that conversation with me saying, are you really satisfied with what you're doing? And I said, yes. And deep down inside, I was really upset with her when she told me that, because it dug deep in terms of, no, I'm not. I know I'm chasing something that has limited value for me. And again, reflecting on your why, getting your mindset right, and then taking that first action, whether it be joining a mastermind, engaging with like-minded folks, even going into local real estate, in your area, just weekly or monthly gatherings that they have. That's a great starting point.
Yeah, I think those are things people need to hear. And I also think you shared another bit of wisdom there, right? As we have these discussions with other people around us, and you mentioned being so annoyed at your wife because the question, it struck a chord, right? It got to a deeper truth that you were not wanting to face. And that can happen as people get into real estate, as they work to get and determine their why. It can get a little intense with those kinds of emotions, for sure.
You grow through discomfort, so it gets intense, but you then realize there's something more that you're living for. We're all going to die. We're going to go up or down. So I truly believe that, and I want to have an impact, right? So if I can help people through their journey, whether that be real estate or beyond, that's what I want to do. And I feel like you need to dig deep to understand what is your calling, what is your passion, and then look at the next step to actually start living that why.
Right. And I feel like in the American culture, that is not a thing, or it's a very small thing. So I love that you were able to do that for yourself and share it with others. So let's go ahead. I have some rapid fire questions. It can be a one or the other. It can be like, it depends with an explanation, wherever you want to take this. Okay.
Great.
So but the first question is cash flow or appreciation?
Cash flow, 100%.
All right. And why?
Appreciation comes and goes. It's not defined. Cash flow, there's significant opportunities. That's money back in your pocket at the end of each month. And if done right with value add plays, you can do very well in your portfolio. I know firsthand with the deals that we bought because of anticipated appreciation early on, has not worked well for us.
Very fair. Next, favorite real estate book?
There's a book, it's called Managing Real Estate by Brandon Turner. I think it's called that. That was the first one that just operationally, it's like, okay, there's systems, there's people, there's processes in place to actually help you. So when I was starting with Chattanooga Properties, I read that book. I downloaded all of the different documents there. My wife said, you're over-engineering this. And I said, I am an engineer, so yes. But that to me was great. But from a mindset, there's tons of mindset books. There's one by Robin Sharma called Everyday Hero Manifesto. And it's really coming from a place of gratitude and looking at life happening for you, not to you. And I think that certainly helped me as well.
Love that. Great references here. And then do you have a morning routine must have?
I don't have a morning routine. I should, like journaling, but I do have an afternoon routine, and that's going to the gym. So that is when it's kind of winding down a little bit. I go to the gym, I feel rejuvenated, I do more work in the afternoon. So it's more of an afternoon routine.
And I love that. I feel like in, again, American culture, it's very much like early bird gets the worm. We got to get out and rise and grind. And the truth is, it doesn't have to happen in the morning. It can be any time of day. So thank you for sharing that, George.
Of course.
All right. Now, George, I know that you have a community and some stuff you're launching to help other people achieve what you have. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So this is something that actually, again, my wife, Mary Alice, had said, you need to start coaching people. You need to start the mentorship program. I've coached so many people informally as well as formally along the way. So what I'll be launching here is WFH Investor. If you work in the corporate world, you know that stands for Work From Home Investor. And it's a platform and a 5-week mastermind where I teach people how to go from not doing anything to taking action. And that includes getting your mindset straight, to looking at how do you select your markets, formulate your teams, underwrite deals in a very conservative manner to make sure that you can find great cash flowing deals. And then again, building out the 90-day plan after the course. So it really is intended to take action. We've got a fantastic community that will be part of that with lenders, investors, agents, and beyond. And I'm excited to just say, okay, here are all the hiccups that I ran into. Here's how to get started and things to look out for. And it's not perfect, because if it's perfect, everyone would be doing it. It's bumpy on the way, but you've got to go through that to actually work in the business, to work on the business. So I'm excited about that 5-week program that I'll be launching here in a few weeks.
I love it. And where can people learn more or reach out for you about that?
Yes, very simply, it's wfhinvestor.com, and you can join the wait list or set up one-on-one time with me so we can have a consultation.
And guys, if you are driving or listening elsewhere, that is going to be in the show notes underneath. And we are recording this at the beginning of October. So by the time you are listening, it's possible this is already live. So definitely go check out WFHinvestor.com. Check it out, and you can work with George and get started on your own beautiful path to real estate investing. So, George, thank you so much for joining me and sharing all of this wisdom. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I very much appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Adrienne. As I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't have started my real estate journey, or maybe I didn't, without you and your team, because Chattanooga is our first and foremost. And you, with your fantastic team, gave me the confidence to start into real estate. I sincerely mean that. And this goes back to the comments around the who, not how of really building fantastic partnerships. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Of course. And that's one of the things I love is, I know, like you, real estate investing was transformational for me and for my life. It is the reason that now I can travel the world with my family. And so I love whenever I can help someone else, realize that for their own life. So I'm glad that you are part of the lives change. That's awesome.
Thanks again.
So this is a wrap on today's episode of The Freedom Blueprint. If you got value from this, or you know somebody who would benefit from hearing George's story, please go ahead and send this over to them now. And then join me again next week for another episode of The Freedom Blueprint.